Hi guys, Nicola here. I am on the gorgeous streets of Dublin. I bought a gorgeous new device that holds my phone in place when I'm driving so that I can safely take calls or record videos while I'm watching the road. I'm being a really good girl. It looks a bit shaky though. I hope it's okay, guys. The title on this video is the importance of listening to your gut. And this might be a little bit random, but it's really important, okay? The backstory here is that you need to know that I have a huge interest in Irish history. It is really shaky, guys. What's going on with that? I have a huge interest in Irish history. And I've always been very drawn towards Michael Collins. And so much so that I think my children think that we are related to him because I visit his grave all the time. But I've a huge interest in my own family history, and in the last maybe 2 years I've been doing a lot of research on where I come from, because it's really, hi Katie! It's really important to know where you come from in order for you to know where you're going. So I've uncovered a lot of fantastic information about my family members who, you know, there's just, I won't get into the detail here simply because I'm keeping some of it as a surprise for my own family when I'm finished all of the research and going to present it to them all, including you, Katie Connolly, on, you know, as far back as I've gotten in the family history. So I'm not going to say some of the things that are amazing, but I'll speak about one of them, which they already know about. So, just take it for granted that I'm mad into Irish history and that I'm very much into my own personal history. So, fast forward to today, I had a meeting with Aisling Curtin, who is a psychologist, and she's an amazing girl, and I've admired her for a while. I've seen her speaking in person, and she's right up my alley. We have, it's actually Mikey and Daddy. Hi Mikey! My nephew in the UK. And my brother Paulie. But I really admire Aisling Curtin, and she's right up my alley. We have a lot of the same values, and I had asked her the last time that she was speaking, could I hook up with her to pick her brain, and so we met each other today and we were sharing ideas, which was fantastic. But on my way, I was telling Aisling this, on my way to meet Aisling, I saw a sign for Arbour Hill. And my mum had said that we had some family members buried up there and that it was a great source of information for when you're doing family research. So in my mind, I was filing this away that I saw the sign for Arbour Hill. It's not a part of Dublin that I'd be really familiar with. But I was explaining to Aisling that my dad's family are from Beresford Street, which is at the top of Smithfield Market, which is where my family had a very large stall up there when they started first, Connolly Fruit and Veg. So I was very energetically drawn to the part of the city that I was in. And when I saw the sign for Arbour Hill, I said, you know, I'm not going to put pressure under this meeting with Aisling, and we actually ended up speaking for 2 hours. But if I have time on the way home, I will stop in Arbour Hill and I'll do a bit of research. So luckily I did have time. Aisling had to go to work and I did have time, so stuck it into Google Maps and off I trotted, and met a gorgeous man outside who was doing a bit of maintenance on the common area, and he directed me into a little office, and I bumped into this man on the way out the door. I want to get emotional now. I bumped into this man on the way out the door and he looked very familiar to me, and I said, I know you. And he said, and I know you. I said, you helped organise a memorial day for my grandfather a couple of years ago. My grandfather, his name is George Tyndall, and he was in the first deployment to the Congo. He was in the 32nd Battalion and he was a sergeant in the army at the time. And this man had helped organise this one day in the barracks where they invited all of our family. And this one day was just to celebrate the life of my granddad, because we didn't have any of his medals, and they got us replica medals, and they told us stories about where he was, and we got to meet some of his friends, and it was just phenomenal. So that was the first encounter in Arbour Hill that I met this man who already had a connection to my grandfather. So I was blown away by this. So he said, what are you doing here? And I said, I was just drawn to come here today because I saw the sign for Arbour Hill, and my mum always said that we had family buried over here, and you know, I'm doing the family tree, I just wanted to see. He said, I don't think you have family buried here. The last people that were buried here were part of the 1916 Rising. And I said, my mum must be wrong, it must be another graveyard nearby, and it is, it's Blackhall Place. So I said, my goodness, I've a huge interest in the 1916 Rising and Michael Collins. And he said, that's interesting. He said, there's a man in that room in there who is a historian, and he knows all about that era. And I said, I'm actually related to a man who was called Tom Ennis, who was Michael Collins' right-hand man. And I said, I don't know if you've heard of him, because Tom Ennis was the head of the Irish Army, and he literally was one of the most prolific characters to turn this country into an independent state. And he really is undervalued and not known enough in this country for everything that, yeah, Antoinette, I was totally meant to be there. Not known enough for everything that he did. And when you type in Tom Ennis into Google, you know, I would want to kiss this man's feet for what he has done for this country. And the fact that I am related to him, really? Is this for real? So, as you all know, you hear me talking about my Auntie Minnie a lot. She's 92 next month. And when I found out that I was related to Tom Ennis, I approached Auntie Minnie and I said, Minnie, did you ever know about this guy called Tom Ennis that we're related to? Like, have you ever heard of him? And she said, oh, don't be silly. Of course I knew Tom Ennis. Sure, he was never out of our home. And I'm sick telling yous about him. Nobody ever listens to me and all this. So it turns out Auntie Minnie knew Tom Ennis personally, and my Uncle Benny hung around with him. He was his friend. So he married my Auntie Kathleen, my great Auntie Kathleen, which is Auntie Minnie's aunt. And anyway, that's another story. But so when I told this guy that I was related to Tom Ennis, he said, stay there for a minute. I'll be back to you in a minute. So he went in and he got this historian guy. And the historian guy comes out and he was a bit dubious looking at me. And he said, yeah, what's your name? And I said, Nicola Connolly Byrne. And you say you're related to Tom Ennis, yeah? Yeah, how? So I told him. And he put his hand out to shake my hand. He said, I want to shake your hand. He said, I cannot believe I'm meeting a relative of Tom Ennis, you know? And he said, Tom Ennis is a hero of mine. He knows more about Tom Ennis than any other human being on the planet. He actually had photographs of Tom Ennis in his photo stream on his iPhone. So he said, come in here to this office. I want you to sit down with me and tell me all you know, and I'll tell you all I know. So I have a lot of photographs of Tom Ennis, who was given to me by a second cousin of mine, Declan Horan, who I found through Ancestry.com. And another guy, Shane, his surname escapes me, but another lovely man who posted me literally every single document that was ever printed about Tom Ennis. So I went into this guy's office and sat down, and I went through all of my photographs that I have belong to my great uncle Tom. And they're just photographs of me that I have of him, and they're just photographs to me. And I don't know the meaning behind any of the photographs. But this guy that I met today knew the meaning behind every single photograph. I have a photograph of Tom Ennis leaving a ship, and it's just Tom Ennis leaving a ship to me. He was able to tell me the name of the ship, why he was coming off the ship, where the ship was after going. He also pointed out, he opened up the picture, and he also said, look at what he's holding in his hand, Nicola. He was holding the first ever Tommy gun to be brought into this country. And he then told me that him and Michael Collins, there's a huge connection with my family, the Ennis side of my family, and Marino. And him and Michael Collins brought the Tommy gun up to Marino and shot a few rounds and, you know, practiced using this gun. And every single photograph that I showed him, he was able to tell me a story behind that. I've been to the graveyard where my Uncle Tom is buried loads of times. I've walked around in the rain with my mother trying to find this grave. I've never been able to find the grave, and I've been there dozens of times trying to find it. I have pictures of it. Your man is never out of the graveyard. He said, I'll tell you, I'll bring you. So he's invited me back up to meet other men who have a huge interest in Tom Ennis, and he's going to give me a private tour of all of the whole of Arbour Hill and other societies that he is involved in. He's a historian himself. And I'm not joking you lads, my mind is blown. If I had if I had went against my gut, I very rarely go against my gut. But if I, had made excuses of, I could be getting back to the house, I could be doing, work on the workshop, I could be replying to emails, I could be making phone calls, I could be cleaning, I could be doing whatever. I was drawn towards Arbour Hill today. And I'll tell you something, it was a pleasure to meet that man. And I've learned so much more about my own family history because I listened to my gut. So I won't bore you anymore. The moral of the story is, lads, go with your gut, because as I always say, your gut is your internal life compass that will never steer you wrong. So I hope you enjoyed that story, and I hope you all have an absolutely fantastic day. Take care. Salam.